Yes, people, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another live stream. And tomorrow night, Chelsea are back in action in the West London derby against Fulham at Craven Cottage. Graham Potter's men will be desperate for a win, having only picked up one win in the last 9 games, sitting 10th in the Premier League. Fulham actually above us in the table at this point in time, having a very good season themselves and probably head into this game as favourites, although the Blues will be boosted by the fact that Joao Felix has arrived. He signed, he trained at Cobham today, so that's going to be a big plus. Hopefully he'll feature, should be in the squad. I wouldn't imagine he starts, but I would imagine he'll feature from the bench and also be boosted by the fact that Fulham's top scorer and one of the best players in the Premier League this season, Alexander Mitrovic, is suspended for the game. So that should potentially help us. We need all the help we can get given how the form has been recently. But guys, there's plenty to get into tonight. We're going to go through Joao Felix. We're going to discuss Christian Pulisic's injury, potential January reinforcements, the form in general before getting to a side to pick. So yeah, I'm riding solo tonight. Someone might be joining me in the next half hour or so. But yeah, get involved in the chat, fire in any questions. But let's get stuck straight into it then. Obviously, after the weekend's humiliation at the Etihad, we needed a little bit of a boost to get things going again. And that has arrived in the form of Joao Felix. He has officially joined now. I mean, news that we kind of knew on Monday that this was going to be official this week, but it's official today. First pictures in the Chelsea shirt. Joao Felix becomes new Chelsea player on loan until the end of the season. Obviously, extended his contract at Atletico Madrid until 2027, so extended it by a further year before joining Chelsea on loan with no option or obligation to buy until the end of the season. Obviously pictured in the Chelsea shirts today. Chelsea is one of the great teams in the world, and I hope to help the team reach their objectives. I'm very happy to be here and very excited to play at Stamford Bridge. Now, obviously, you wouldn't expect a new signing to say anything different, but I think Felix will be, from a personal perspective, delighted to kind of be out of Atletico Madrid. He was kind of stagnating there. He found it difficult following his huge transfer from Benfica, the second most expensive teenager of all time behind Kylian Mbappe. And it hasn't really worked out from Atletico Madrid. There's been glimpses, but ultimately I think maybe Diego Simeone's style of play and how he sets up Atletico Madrid doesn't necessarily allow attacking players to flourish. And I think Felix is much the same. He looks a lot better when he played for Portugal, a lot freer. And it's going to be interesting to see how he adapts to the Premier League. I mean, Chelsea really need a boost. The attack, as I've said many times, is, it's struggling. It's poor, and it's been awful for a number of years now. So the impetus will be on him to try and make something happen, try and spark them into action. And it'll be interesting to see kind of how he adapts to the Premier League, how he settles in. He's not got long to settle in. We're looking at a 6-month period here on loan, and he kind of really does need to hit the ground running. And it's really hard coming to a new league, particularly in January, particularly to a struggling team like Chelsea are at the moment. And you've got to sort of make an instant impact. Now, has he got the quality to do this? Absolutely. He's a very talented boy. He said in interviews that he's kind of best as a goal-scoring number 10. Kaka was his hero growing up. But it'd be interesting to see kind of how Graham Potter utilises him. It looks at the moment we're kind of settling with a back four, either a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3. I think in the 4-2-3-1, he 100% plays in that number 10 role. I think that's his best position. But again, he can be used as a second striker also, like a shadow striker, as it were. So whether we decide to go with 2 up top, potentially, I think him and Kai Havertz are quite similar in terms of they're kind of very versatile across the front line. They strike me as quite similar players. I think Felix is probably a little bit more skillful, but I don't know if the two can coexist within the same team or not. I was very much of the opinion that it was going to be either Joao Felix or Kai Havertz. But let's kind of see what happens here. Look, ultimately, I don't know if this deal is going to work out or not for Chelsea. In terms of there being, you can look at it 2 ways, with no option to buy or no obligation to buy. You almost feel like we're getting 6 months out of him, and then that's kind of it. But then on the flip side, you can think, well, if he doesn't do well, it means that we're not lumbered into signing a player that hasn't done well with us and might not be in the right fit for us. By signing him on loan for 6 months, admittedly at a cost of £9 million plus covering his wages, it is relatively risk-free, because if it doesn't work out, we can send him straight back. But ultimately, I look at it and I think, well, if he does well, we want to sign him permanently. Atletico Madrid wanted £88 million in the first place. I mean, Chelsea have got a good relationship with Atletico Madrid, having done business with them before, the likes of Diego Costa, Felipe Luis, to name a couple. But You know, if Joao Felix has a good 6 months, you're going to be thinking, well, if we want to go back to the negotiating table to try and get him on a permanent deal, then surely there's not going to be much negotiation room from the 88 million. They could even be asking for more for a player that could be 24 years of age by the time we look to potentially sign him next summer. So from that business perspective, it seems that it's heavily weighted in Atletico Madrid's favour in that sense. But it really is going to be fascinating to see how Joao Felix does. You know, I mean, hopefully he'll make his debut tomorrow night at Craven Cottage, but I should imagine he definitely makes his debut for sure in the game against Crystal Palace at home. But on Sunday, I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of in two minds about this one. I mean, yes, it's an exciting player, but I look at it and it's like this is another player signed in the attacking positions that is kind of not where needs strengthening. That's kind of like a bonus situation, as it were, like to fill that position. Whereas the midfield obviously is a massive priority, as is finding a backup right back, and you almost think this position is kind of a bit of a luxury and added bonus. I think Toppoli and co were saying that, you know, having with the form and with the injuries picked up in those attacking areas, it kind of forced them to move for Felix. I think if Sterling and Pulisic hadn't got injured, I'm pretty sure that this deal probably wouldn't have been done, or it certainly would have been pushed back to much later in the window. I think the fact that Pulisic, which I'll get onto, is out for a minimum of 2 months, hopefully be back soon, Potter was saying in the presser today, and Sterling is still unconfirmed how long he's going to be out for. I think that has kind of forced Chelsea's hand. But yeah, guys, do let me know in the chat how you think Raheem Sterling's going to do. Not Raheem Sterling, sorry. How you think Joao Felix is going to do, where you think he's going to play, and just your general thoughts on it. And I'll bring some of them up on screen. So please do get active in the chat with your thoughts on a move for Joao Felix. Now, Felix has also had a bit more to say. Being here at Chelsea feels amazing. I'm very happy, and I'll bring my happiness of the game onto the pitch. Playing with happiness is what I'm about, so I like to get on the ball, and I want to make all the fans enjoy my football while helping the team. Now, yeah, that sounds great. It's just now comes to the hard part of delivering that. So hopefully Felix can deliver that, but he seems happy to be here. As I said, a new lease of life, a new environment, new surroundings could be exactly what he needs to kind of try and kickstart his career, which, even though at 23 years of age, seems to have stalled a little bit. It feels like he very much hasn't kicked on from the teenager he was at Benfica. It's not really happened for him at Atletico Madrid, as I said, but it looks like it could be exciting times at Chelsea, and hopefully this works out for us in one way or another, because it would be nice to see him come. But I almost feel like, you know, we always talk about Chelsea looking to build a project, and bringing someone in for 6 months on loan strikes as kind of short-term desperation rather than, you know, building a project for the future, as it were. But let's kind of see how it works out. I mean, Graham Potter today was speaking about Joao Felix, and obviously he was asked about it, as you would expect him to be asked. And he's saying that Joao Felix is a great one. He's been training regularly, had game time, so physically he can go in. There's a little unknown with the adaptation period. He's a confident player who can impose himself, make the difference. And I think two things here: that he can make the difference, but it's going to be, I don't think he suddenly makes everything better. He doesn't suddenly solve the goal scoring issue, because he's not necessarily a prolific goal scorer. I think he's got 5 goals and 3 assists in 20 appearances for Atletico Madrid this season. And the adaptation period is another key one as well. Obviously, the Premier League, very different to La Liga. He's not going to suddenly come in and hit the ground running. So we've got to lower the expectations on him and realize that, you know, this guy is not just going to suddenly change everything for us. He's not the missing piece of the attacking jigsaw. He's very much just an extra body in there, and hopefully someone to spark things into life. But I do think with the injuries and the fact that he's coming, he's chosen us, and it's just 6 months loan with no option or obligation, as I said, that he's obviously picked us on the premise that he's going to be playing the vast majority of the game. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets used and how he adapts to the league. Lemek, big up, bro. Felix, I like him, but another Kai. We need to give him our support. Yeah, I do feel that he does seem to be another player sort of in the mold of Kai Havertz in a similar way. Do we necessarily need that profile? Probably not, but yeah, let's see what happens with him. But yeah, we have got to get behind him. We got to back him, and yeah, we just got to see what happens with him. I mean, personally, as I said earlier, like I'd like to see him play either as a 10 if we play a 4-2-3-1, or as the centre forward. So yeah, one of those two. I don't think he works best off the flank, but I guess we're going to have to try and pigeonhole him into a position. But let's stick with transfer news. Obviously, Felix through the door, but Chelsea's attacking options aren't stopping there. According to Fabrizio Romano, Chelsea are still pursuing Borussia Mönchengladbach and French forward Marcus Thuram. Could be available for... Yeah, so Fabrizio Romano is saying Chelsea are exploring Thuram, but they're also exploring other options for attacking players. Thuram's an interesting one. Versatile player, good player, can play as a centre forward, can play as a wide man. Good age profile. I think he's 25, possibly 26 years of age. He'd be available on the cheap from Gladbach as his contract expires in the summer. People's reports stating perhaps as little as 10 million euros, which is around the £8.5 million mark, which for a player of his quality, a player of his age and his calibre, it would represent very good business. And I think he's quite tall. I think over 6 foot. So to have that kind of a slightly different option, different kind of attacking profile in the team, I think it makes sense. I think it gives Chelsea an interesting option, a different profile at the top end of the pitch from the other players that we've got. And I think a deal would be well worth exploring. Obviously, it goes to the summer. Chelsea would still be in for a shout, but I think the club are fully aware that, there's no Champions League football to offer. Or maybe no European football at all in a worst case scenario, that it may be hard to convince Thuram to join, which is why we're pushing hard now to try and get a deal done. But I look at this and I think the profile of the player, it's a good profile. It suits us. It's something different at the top end of the pitch, something that we don't really have in the squad right now. And for £8.5 million, I think it's definitely worth a bit of a gamble just to see what happens. And ultimately, it wasn't to turn out. I'm sure you could, in 18 months' time, you could definitely sell him on and make a profit. So for me, I'd give this one the green light. But again, as I've been saying, revamping the attack, whilst is important, I wouldn't have it down as a January priority at all. Felix in, fine, but I don't think we need any more. Certainly not at the expense of midfield and a right back in this scenario. But obviously, Fabrizio going on to say that 120 million euros release clause or nothing for Enzo. Chelsea haven't contacted Benfica in over a week. So it's clear that Enzo Fernandez deal is dead in the water unless Chelsea are just kind of giving it a little bit of a cooling off period and may try and go back again later in the window. But it looks like it's very clear. You offer the 120 million release clause, which we didn't want to do in the first place. Or he's not leaving. So it'd be interesting to see whether we kind of have a change of tact or if we go back in from it all. But it looks like the Enzo deal is dead in the water. He scored for Benfica last night, tapped the badge, said that he's staying there. So yeah, I think that's done, but never say never in football. We may well go in for another go. Another player. Yeah, I know, mate. It comes up as like, yeah, it's because they got more subscribers. So, guys, you need to subscribe to the channel. If you haven't done so already, please smash the likes and subscribe to the channel. Let's get us more subscribers than the Blues Brothers, because they are also a jazz group. But I might actually have to change the name of the channel potentially just so that doesn't happen. When I type in a channel, jazz musicians come up. Might want to look into that, get your channel out there more. Yeah, I think that's a good idea, mate. I will actually look into that and perhaps get the name of the channel changed, so we can obviously, it's easier to find and we don't get confused with those musicians, because that's certainly not what we do on this channel. Obviously all things Chelsea. But yeah, Gary, thanks very much for that, mate. Much appreciated. Another name that is doing the rounds as well in terms of transfer news is links with Moise Caicedo of Brighton seem to be gathering a little bit more momentum. Obviously, having missed out on Fernandez, as I just said, Chelsea are looking for a midfield player. Obviously, got good relationship with Brighton. Brighton are probably sick of the sight of us, but at the same time, it's a possibility. I don't know what I feel about it. Caicedo, again, a good midfield player. No problems with him, but I don't know what the price would be. Chelsea also considering potentially Alexis McAllister as another option. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But guys, would you be keen for a move for Moise Caicedo from Brighton. Again, a young midfield player, has worked with Graham Potter before, is probably ready for a step up in his game. But again, I don't know, is he the right profile? Is he the profile we're looking for? It will cost a lot of money. We're going to have to spend big money. But yeah, I'm not too sure about that. Alexis McAllister is another one that I think is a good player. Had a fantastic World Cup. Is probably now too good for Brighton, but they're going to demand big money for him, and I can't see them letting him go in January. I probably very much expect any bids for him to go in during the summer and kind of see what happens from there. But guys, in terms of outgoing, yeah, I would definitely take him as well, mate. For sure. I think it'll be a good signing. But again, Brighton probably getting thoroughly pissed off with us. We've taken Paul Winstanley from the board. We've taken Carl McCauley, the recruitment guy. We've taken Potter. We've taken the coaching staff. Now we want to take potentially Caicedo or McAllister. Yeah, Brighton probably going to be sick of the sight of us. But again, these are good players. And, moves should be explored with the Enzo deal dead in the water. In terms of a right-back, Pedro Porro of Sporting Lisbon has been a name that's doing the rounds. Spurs definitely in the driving seat for that one. 45 million euros release clause, which Sporting Lisbon would insist on being paid in order to get Porro's signature. A decent right-back. He's done well. I don't know. I think he's probably going to go to Spurs, but Chelsea need to be getting on a right back. They really do. I mean, Matt Law reporting in the Telegraph that Chelsea are finding it difficult to convince a right back to join because it doesn't want to be back up to Reece James. I find that quite strange. Not strange. I'm not surprised in terms of the fact that I know Reece is probably going to play most of the games, but we play so many games, rotation, 5 subs. Reece James has not got the best fitness record over the last couple of seasons. So a backup right back would 100% play a very decent chunk of minutes. Plus, there's got to be someone that's better than Aspie out there for sure that can do a really good job for us. So Pedro Porro potentially one name to look out for. But other than that, there's not really been any concrete links for any right backs whatsoever. Juranovic of Celtic was one that was linked, but he subsequently actually looks like he's going to be joining Serie A side Monza for about £7 million. So obviously, if he's joining Monza, who just got promoted from Serie B, then he probably isn't of the required quality, with the greatest respect to him. But yeah, no real news on any further right backs. Yeah, Porro is a good player. I mean, I've not watched much of the Portuguese league, but I have seen him in the Champions League, and he looks like a very good player. But again, looks like Spurs are at the head of the queue at the moment, but Chelsea could certainly be looking at potentially hijacking that deal. I know Ben Jacobs has reported on the possibility of that over the last few days, but we'll have to wait and see what Chelsea do and what when they make their move, if they do make their move for Porro or another right back. But it's certainly a position that needs to be addressed ASAP because we're already on the end of the 11th of January. So, we've got to get a bit of a move on. We're not far off from being halfway through the window. So, yes, it's great that Felix is in. It's great that we've added youngsters in Badia Shield, Fofana and Andre Santos. But ultimately, in terms of improving the first team, we've got to push on and really, plow ahead and make headway into this window and try and add a midfielder, try and add a right back as well to sort of in an attempt to fire us up the table in the second half of the season. Matty Cash. I don't know. I spoke to someone before. I can't remember who I was speaking to. Someone else mentioned Matty Cash to me. I think he's doing decent at Villa. Villa have signed a new fullback. I don't know if it's a left back or a right back. It might be a left back, I think, actually. Matty Cash, good player. I don't know. Is he good enough for Chelsea? I know, we're shit at the moment, but ultimately, talking about the bigger picture, he's not really been linked with any other bigger clubs than Villa. And I'm not necessarily that means he's bad, but yeah, it might. I don't know. Maybe it's a bit of an indication. Porro was a Barcelona academy graduate, close friends with Cucurella. Yeah, maybe Cucurella could have a little bit of a word with him, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with this one. Yeah, Ian Martin is another one having a great loan at Burnley. I mean, I know we're desperate, but we're not desperate. If that makes sense. Martin, I think, is one that certainly Chelsea have got an eye on. They want to keep him. He's having a fantastic season playing for Burnley under Vincent Kompany in the Championship. And if Chelsea were mega desperate, as I said, I think they'd perhaps look at recalling him. I don't even know if there's a recall option in the loan, so maybe that's not even possible. Yes, you could maybe pay Burnley compensation to recall him. I don't know what the powers are of a parent club kind of in those loan deals and whatever the agreement is. But yeah, Martin is having a phenomenal season at Burnley, it must be said. But guys, before we get into injuries, I just wanted to talk about a potential outgoing in Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Now, obviously, he came in, and I've been a big fan of what Bowley and Clearlake have done since they came into the club. I like the fact that they've had to come in, they've had to learn fast on the job. They've made changes. They've now got their structure in place, and hopefully we'll start to see the rewards of that. The transfer policy seems to be good. The recruitment seems to be decent in terms of getting deals done. Obviously, minus the Enzo deal, which we've obviously massively fucked up. But in terms of how they've gone about everything else, I think they've done really well. This Aubameyang deal is the one thing they've got hugely, hugely wrong. Obviously, Aubameyang was the only reason Chelsea were interested in Aubameyang was of Thomas Tuchel, because Thomas Tuchel had worked with the player before, and we needed a centre forward to replace Romelu Lukaku, and there weren't many options on the market, so it was always going to be an aging sort of stopgap signing, and Aubameyang kind of fitted that profile. But the fact they signed Aubameyang off, knowing they were going to sack Thomas Tuchel the game after, it made no sense at all. And yes, at that purple patch where he got 3-3, where he scored away at Palace and in both of the Milan games, but ultimately it's not worked out for him at all. Now, I think he's an awful signing, one of the worst signings in Chelsea's history, but in small defense of him, he's a striker that at his age is not going to offer you anything unless he's scoring goals. And we don't create any chances. Our attacking stats are bottom half of the table for this season, which explains why we are where we are in the league, because we don't create enough chances. We're not clinical in front of goal. We do not score enough goals. So, yeah, I do feel sorry for him in that case, but I also don't feel sorry for him because he doesn't put himself about. He doesn't get involved in the game. He doesn't try and drop deep and come for the ball. He offers nothing. I mean, in the game against City where he was subbed on and subbed off, he had one touch in the City box and he was on for well over an hour. And I know that's not completely his fault because we don't create enough chances, but you've got to be making more of an impact than that. And ultimately, I think at his age, with the players we've got coming in, with Fofana as well now through the door, ultimately, I don't know whether he might go out on loan this window, depending on if any more bodies come through the door, what profile of forwards we're kind of left with. But I think it would make sense, even if we had to take a financial hit, just to terminate his contract and or just send him back to Barcelona at a cut price fee. Fabrizio Romano reporting that Aubameyang can't play for any other club than Barcelona and Chelsea due to FIFA rules. 100% confirmed. Being told that Barca would love the idea to bring Aubameyang back, but only if it's 100% free transfer. Different salary terms, and only if Memphis Depay leaves, with Atletico Madrid interested in him. So there's quite a lot of variables to this deal still. Chelsea would have to obviously be prepared to let Aubameyang leave for free. It would be a little bit of a loss. They would be losing £11 million. But it would free up the salary free up his salary slot. So it would start to reduce the wages. Those wages could be offered to another incoming player potentially, or go a large portion towards an incoming player's wages. And for me, I look at it and I think Aubameyang's finished at Chelsea. It's kind of finished before he even got started, really. Should never have been signed. And I think it's clear now the direction we're going, and he's not part of the project. He's not part of the first team plans at all. And it's best for all parties if we send him back to Spain. And I think we need to make ruthless decisions. We need to be bold here. And if it was down to me, I would be looking to send him back to Barcelona on a free transfer, terminate the contract, and just get rid and kind of forget that this deal ever happened. Attitude at Arsenal wasn't great. I don't know what his attitude's been like at Chelsea. There's been no reports or nothing that I've certainly come across or read to suggest that he's a disruptive influence in the dressing room or his attitude has been a problem. But I think the subbing off against City and then subsequently being left out of the squad for the FA Cup, even though Potter said he had a tight back, I don't think those two things I don't think it's a coincidence that he was left out of the squad after the performance against City. I'm not really sure. I think he obviously clearly came here just for Thomas Tuchel. Tuchel's now gone. It's a difficult situation for him. So yeah, for me, it's best that Aubameyang does leave. I think it's best he leaves. He goes back to Barcelona, and he just moves on. Really simple as that. But yeah, guys, let me know your thoughts in the chat. If you think Chelsea should let Aubameyang leave on a free transfer, terminate the contract, take the financial hit, kind of move on from it and just write it off as a bad deal, really. Let me now let's move on to injuries now. Obviously, Christian Pulisic out for 2 months. Yeah, not the best news there. I'll just bring it up on the screen now. Potter confirming in the press conference that obviously Pulisic puts up an injury in that game against Manchester City in the league that also saw Raheem Sterling injured. But yeah, Graham Potter, Christian is going to be out for a couple of months, we think, hopefully less. Sterling less than this, but we are still evaluating the extent, as reported by Football London's Adam Newson. Now, kind of Pulisic divides opinion, but ultimately, he has been a starter for us for most of this season in terms of certainly since when Potter's been here. He's found himself playing quite a lot. He has contributed a reasonable amount. He's not been pulling up any trees, but no one has in the attack. But he has found himself starting more often than not. But look, I get what you say, Shano. He has been made of glass, but he had before this injury, he had been on a half decent run of keeping himself relatively fit, which hasn't been the case the whole time that he's obviously been at Stamford Bridge. 2 months him being out is a blow, not because he's been pulling up trees for us, because it's a body, it's a senior player, and it's an attacker that we could do with when we're kind of low on numbers and we're struggling with injury. I mean, yes, you look at the attackers on the books when everyone's fit. We have got an abundance. Obviously, all of them aren't performing and some of them aren't good enough. But you look at it and you think you've got Havertz, you've got Joao Felix, you've got Pulisic, you've got Ziyech, you've got Sterling. You've got Mount that can play there. Yeah, there's plenty of options. I do agree that I think he's finished at Chelsea. Now, yes, a couple of months, but that won't be a couple of months till he's back playing. That could be till he's back in training. It could be 8 to 10 weeks until we see him kind of fully back on the football pitch again. And that doesn't leave many games left for him to play. I do think that Chelsea will look to probably move on Pulisic this summer. I think with Nkunku coming in, maybe we'll make Joao Felix permanent. There'll be other options as well. Maybe if Thuram comes this window as well, I think Pulisic will look at it and think that his time at Chelsea's up. And I think most fans wouldn't have an issue with that. They probably think it's the right way to go. Whilst he's a talented player, he can't keep himself fit. He's not consistent enough. And he ultimately does seem to be better, have more of an impact from the bench in kind of recent games. But yeah, obviously still bad news for Chelsea because we're really struggling with injuries at the moment. And for someone to be out for 8 to 10 weeks is a big blow. I mean, the Sterling one's interesting as well. Apparently some sort of hamstring injury, but I'm not sure why the scans haven't been able to pick anything up and determine how long he's going to be out for. But I imagine Sterling could be out for at least 6 weeks. So he's going to miss quite a few important games. And both of those players are going to miss our Champions League tie against Borussia Dortmund next month as well. So that could be a little bit of a problem. Yeah, I know it's weird, Shana, that we got like a big deal wrapped up so early. Yeah, but Nkunku is 100% coming to Chelsea next summer. So he will be a Chelsea player next summer. And it's a big plus to get a player of his quality wrapped up. And it's great that, he's already joining regardless of the situation we find ourselves in, whether we're going to be playing Europa League, Conference League, Champions League, no European football. He is coming through the door. Yes, Athar, big up, bro. Big up. Excited to see Felix. Do you think if he helps us massively in the 6 months, which he looks to buy? Look, I think we should. If he does really well for us, then there's no reason why we shouldn't be looking to buy him in the summer. But him doing well for us, what that does do though is kind of push up the asking price. It would increase his price. I think Atletico Madrid have kind of, by extending his contract to 2027 before he signed the loan deal, they're kind of protecting his value a little bit. And yeah, it'll be interesting. They originally wanted £88 million for him in an option or obligation to buy. Chelsea obviously didn't go for that, perhaps thinking that, obviously if he doesn't do well, I don't want to be tied into buying a player for that amount of money. But then on the flip side, if he does well, then it's going to be hard to negotiate that down, or it could even increase his price. But yeah, I look at it and Chelsea and like Clearlake and Burnley talk about, the project and whatnot, but to bring someone in on a 6-month loan deal doesn't seem to be taking the project into account if they're not then going to be signed permanently, providing they obviously do half well. So yeah, look, providing Felix does well, I think Chelsea will look to sign him permanently. If he doesn't do well, then I'd be surprised if Chelsea looked to bring him back on a full-time basis. Also, rumours or reports, should I say, coming out of Spain that Diego Simeone could be moving on from Atletico Madrid at the end of the season. So maybe if a new manager goes in there, he could perhaps be swayed to stay if it's a different style of football, one that perhaps suits his style of play a bit more, than he could look to stay. This is true. And whilst, top four is important, it's also not entirely true that you have to have Champions League football to attract top level players. Yes, if you're talking about the very best of the best, your Mbappes or your Bellinghams potentially, then Champions League football is probably going to be a deciding factor potentially, or it's going to play a lot more of a role than signing perhaps the next bracket of player down. But Chelsea have still a massive club, still got huge pull. That London lifestyle, players do like that. Attracting players shouldn't really be too much of a problem, despite the situation we're in. The Felix chose us and Kunku signed for us. The likes of Badiashile, young, exciting talent, are signing for us. So, we still got that pull. And despite our poor form, I don't think that is causing us really too many issues in that respect. KSA, man, big up, bro. Can Felix play Champions League? Yes, he can, I believe, because he's only played once, because he's only played for Benfica in the Champions League. I think that means he should be able to play for us. As long as we register him in the squad, I'm pretty certain that he'll be able to play. I think that's one of the main reasons we probably would have brought him in. I don't think he would have come in on loan if he couldn't play in the Champions League. I think that was a major part of kind of accelerating this deal. Let me have a quick look. Apparently, there's been a new Fabrizio Romano tweet. Let's have a quick look at this. Let's have a look now. I'll bring this up on screen. I have kind of gone over this in a bit of detail already. Let's just bring this back up anyway to recap for anyone new that has joined. Here we go. So, Joao Felix deal will not change Chelsea plans, as negotiations will continue for Marcus Thuram, as revealed last week, and also other targets in different positions. Again, Christopher Nkunku deal 100% sealed for June, so he can be considered a Chelsea player. So, other targets and stuff, it is ongoing. It's a fluid situation. Thuram, as I said, I think would be a good deal to get done at a cut price. I think that's relatively risk-free at his age and for the money. He can obviously be flipped on for a profit in 18 months time or so if he drastically doesn't work out. But I think a move like that would make sense. It's smart business, and that's kind of something that Chelsea and Clearlake, need to be moving more towards, this smart business and, not signing huge names. I know we've bought Joao Felix, but moving away from spending big money on players, because ultimately big money signings generally haven't worked out for Chelsea. Our best signings have kind of been mid-range to the lower end of the price scale. They seem to be working out better for us. But Marcus Thuram, I'd be up for that. And it's good to see in other positions as well. So this is going to be a busy month for Chelsea. It's going to be an exciting times ahead for the Blues. And we need this boost because matters on the pitch aren't going so well. I think that pretty much rounds out the kind of transfer section. So let's move to matters on the pitch. Chelsea taking on Fulham tomorrow in the West London derby at Craven Cottage, taking the short trip down the Thames to Fulham's ground. Hoping to see a new French defender tomorrow. Can't say his name. Oh yeah, Benoit Badiashile, the Monaco centre back. It's possible. We could maybe see him. I have a question. If Felix playing well, can we buy him in the summer? Or we can try and buy him. There is no option or obligation to buy, so we'd have to go back to the negotiation table with Atletico Madrid and try and agree a fee. The fee that they did want included in the deal was an option or an obligation at 88 million, but we didn't go for that. We managed to negotiate that out. So Felix would be very expensive. We're looking at 88, 90 million pounds potentially. His price could increase if he has a good 6 months at Chelsea, and Atletico Madrid might look to try and get more money for him potentially. Are there any further news for a right back? No further news really. I mean, Pedro Porro at Sporting Lisbon has been a name that's been doing the rounds in recent days. Spurs are ahead of the queue for him. But as I said earlier, Ben Jacobs reporting that Chelsea could look to hijack that deal. 45 million euros release clause. Sporting Lisbon would want that paid in full in order to get Porro's services. So, I mean, it's one to keep an eye out on. But again, other than that, no real concrete links for any right backs whatsoever, which I do find a little bit surprising. Would I take Romeo Lavia? Yeah, Lavia is a great player. Again, young. He's only been at Southampton 6 months. He only joined them in the summer. He looks a very good player. Obviously, Joe Shields, that we recently recruited from Southampton, played a big role in bringing him to St Mary's. So he knows the player well. He's a good identifier of good young talent, and I think he'd be a profile that does fit Chelsea well. But ultimately, in January, it's going to be tough because he's just joined. It's going to be a lot of money, and Southampton will be reluctant to sell. And I think they were quite pissed off in the way in which Joe Shields ended up leaving St Mary's for Stamford Bridge. But yes, I would take Lavia. Yes, look, Kyle, big up, mate. Thanks for tuning in as always. But in terms of the game against Fulham tomorrow, as I said at the top of the show, Fulham probably for the first time in a long time, head into this clash above Chelsea in the Premier League table, and will probably head into this clash as favourites for this game as well, given how things have played out this season. A big plus for the Blues is the fact that Aleksandar Mitrovic, Fulham's leading scorer and one of the best players, arguably in the Premier League this season, will be suspended for the game. It's likely that former Spurs loanee Carlos Vinicius will lead the line for Fulham instead. Obviously, they've got ex-Chelsea man Willian amongst their ranks as well. So given our luck, I'm sure he'll either find the back of the net or will get an assist from a corner, even though he never, ever beats the first man. So Marco Silva's side are doing well. He's potentially looking at signing a new long-term contract at Craven Cottage, and he would thoroughly deserve that. He's built a good team at Fulham, made a great start to the season. They've been smart in the window, made some good signings, and the home form's decent. It's going to be hard for us to get a result. Even if we were in good form, it would be tough for us to get a result. But given the dire form that we are in, 1 win in our last 9 games, it's going to be really, really tough. Joao can hopefully be a fluid playmaker in our midfield. I mean, he's probably going to play. If we go 4-2-3-1, he'll play as a goal-scoring 10. If we play 4-3-3, I'd like to think he'll play as a centre forward, and Havertz will get shifted out to one of the wings. But I guess he's quite versatile across the front line. But ultimately, I think his best position is as a number 10. So we do go with that 4-2-3-1. I would like to see him deployed in that position. My forward lineup: Fofana, Oba, Ziyech, and in a 10, Felix. Not personally what I'd go for, but again, there's creativity in there. And if we can create chances for Aubameyang, having just kind of slated him and said we should get rid of him, there is the caveat that, there's not much he can do. We know he's a very limited player at his age, and he was purely bought to score goals, and we don't create any chances. So having him on the pitch is pretty redundant. But yeah, I think Fofana should feature, and I will get into this as I get towards picking the starting 11, guys. I think we will turn up tomorrow, just have a feeling. Well, I hope we turn up tomorrow. We haven't turned up for the last 9-10 matches, so it's about time we turned up. So hopefully we can. Question on fitness outlook of Pulisic confirmed by Graham Potter today. I've just gone over it before you joined, mate. Pulisic out for at least 2 months, hopefully to be sooner. Sterling expected not to be out for that long, but the full extent of his injury is yet to be revealed yet for some reason. Scans not on his hamstring, not revealing the relevant information. So not really too sure what the hold up is there. Agreed. I don't want to see Kai Havertz either. But yeah, this match is going to be tricky. Fulham riding a wave. They're doing really well. As I said, Mitrovic being out is going to be an issue for them. But Chelsea and Graham Potter himself, despite having the full backing of the board, he'll know he's under pressure because at Chelsea, it's a results-based business as it is everywhere, but particularly at Chelsea Football Club, what we've had in the past under Roman, Potter would have already been sacked under Abramovich by now. We know that. But Bowley's very patient with his coaches, with his managers. You only have to look at the Dodgers. I think he's had the coach in place there for over 10 years now. He likes to give people time. He likes to have managers there for the long term. There are obviously teething issues here. Potter's been parachuted into an absolute mess in terms of the club, the recruitment, the quality of the squad. And these are all mitigating factors. But ultimately, people don't buy that when the results on the pitch are poor. So you've got to try and get something out of the players you've got available to you. Use your coaching ability to the best you can and just hope that the tide will change, because it will change at some point. But despite all the mitigating circumstances and the fact that, for me and for a lot of other Chelsea fans, this is far from Graham Potter's fault or anywhere near a large majority his fault at all. But he has got to start picking results up. It is as simple as that. And, he's trying different things. He's trying different formations, using different players. And, we just can't seem to get a tune out of any players. The only players that have come up with any respect are Thiago Silva and Kepa. Obviously, Reece James when he's been fit. Anyone else has been a bit of a huge letdown. But yeah, the game tomorrow is going to be tough. I mean, I don't know what to expect. I think it's going to be really tricky for Chelsea. Away form's not been good in recent months. We've been to Brighton, we got hammered. We went up to Newcastle, we were terrible. Obviously, drew at Brentford, drew at Forest, which was an awful performance as well. So, but yeah, the form on the road's not been good, and we do need to pick up the points as soon as possible. We've got Palace at home Sunday before a huge game away at Anfield against Liverpool next weekend. So yeah, we've got to really start picking the form up. But guys, I'm going to get into picking the team now. So do let me know your thoughts in the chat as always, and make sure you smash the likes on the stream and subscribe to the channel. I want to try and get to 3,000 subscribers as quickly as possible, ideally before the end of the season. Got big aspirations for the channel, so yeah, all your support would be greatly appreciated, guys. Would be greatly appreciated. Yeah, I've said this on a number of streams before. Sterling has been no better than Werner in the amount of time that he's been here. I mean, just briefly on the recruitment we did last summer, everyone was really gassed about it. I was as well. I'm not going to pretend otherwise, but hindsight's a wonderful thing. And looking back, we didn't actually improve the squad. All we did was replace what we lost. Obviously, Cucurella came in. That was an improvement of the squad. But in terms of overall, Koulibaly and Fofana replaced Rudiger and Sterling. Koulibaly's replaced, Rudiger and Christensen. Koulibaly's been nowhere near the level that Rudiger has. And Fofana, through the fact that he's not been fit, has been no better than Christensen. Aubameyang and Sterling have replaced Lukaku and Werner. Sterling has not really been any better than Werner, and Aubameyang has been probably worse than Lukaku. So yeah, things probably actually worse than they were last season, despite the money that we've spent. Yeah, are they still winning 2-0 against City? That's mad if they actually end up going through. Potter or Bust FC. Hopefully the January signings can help him turn the results around. Yeah, I hope they can as well. Felix will be a big boost. It's a quality player through the door, so hopefully that can have a bit of an impact for tomorrow's game. And yeah, the quicker we get more names through the door, the better it's going to be for sure. Yeah, I'll get into this, Daniel. I would agree. I wouldn't play Mason Mount tomorrow either. However, elephant in the room remains till we start climbing the table. Yeah, it will. People are always going to be questioning Graham Potter whilst Chelsea aren't picking up results or aren't climbing the table. Because for a team like Chelsea to be in 10th in the league, despite the circumstances, it is inexcusable. We have to move ourselves up the table and start picking up results as soon as possible. I have a question. I want to know, did you see Todd in the stadium and what did you tell to Tony and Fofana? No, I didn't meet Todd Bowley personally, but he was there. He's like on the other side of the thing. Fofana, what did I say to Fofana? I literally had a little chat with him, asked him how I was getting on with his rehab, and kind of wished him all the best and hope to see him back on the pitch too. Tony, what did I say to Eva and Tony? I literally asked him, I wished him all the best for the rest of the season and said, hopefully see you playing at Stamford Bridge next season. And he just gave me a little smile. So yeah, we'll kind of see what happens. I'm not taking any credit, no agent work from myself there if Tony does end up at Stamford Bridge next summer. Yes, right, guys, let's get into the team then. Let's have it. In goal, I'm going again with a 4-3-3 formation. It seems to be what we've been rolling out for most of the recent games. For me, no real reason to switch to a back three. We would have done it if we were going to already. I feel, despite the fact we went with a back three away at City at the weekend, which saw Conor Gallagher playing at right back, which was an absolute madness. Don't know what was going on there. Mendy's still not fit, so even if he was, it wouldn't be him. Kepa continues in goal, and he's had a really good season for Chelsea. He's done really well under Graham Potter, and he's earned us a lot of points that, if he wasn't at the top of his game, we perhaps wouldn't have got. But ultimately, in the long run, I do think the goalkeeping position is an area that Chelsea can certainly upgrade and do better in. I don't think Kepa or Mendy ultimately are of the required quality to be Premier League winning goalkeepers. But yeah, let's see. Going with Kepa in goal. We'd like to see Datro Fofana Yeah, I would also like to see him as well. We'll get to that. Guys, keep smashing the likes on the stream and subscribe to the channel. Would really appreciate all of your support. Into the centre-back partnership then. Obviously, Thiago Silva is definitely going to play. Didn't play in the Cup against Man City at the weekend, so he'll be back in for this one. Now, the interesting question is, who is going to partner him? Is it going to be Koulibaly, who had a shocking game at the weekend? Is it going to be Chalobah? Or is it going to? Or are we going to see a debut for Badiashile? Now, for me, I'm going to do something a little bit rogue here. I think Koulibaly's been in poor form, and I personally wouldn't play him. Aspilicueta has been in terrible form as well, so I'll probably play Chalobah at right back again. I am going to go Badiashile for a debut, and I could be wrong here. But I'm going to go Badiashile alongside Thiago Silva tomorrow in the centre back pairing. I don't think Koulibaly's performances have been good enough, even though he was good against Man City at home in the league. Overall his performances have been really, really inconsistent. So for me, Silva and a debut for Benoit Badiashile in the centre back positions. Aspilicueta is just not cutting it at this level for me, so I will be sticking in Chalobah at right back. And even though, he struggled a little bit at times in that City game, I still felt he was one of the better performers. And he is going to offer us more at right back than Aspilicueta will. Atar, it is a good point. We could see Bashir Humphreys again at right back. I would probably be surprised if we did see him. I expect he would be on the bench, but you do just never know. But yeah, I'd go Chalobah at right back. Left back's an interesting one because Cucurella didn't play at the weekend, but then I really like Lewis Hall, and I think the young lads are doing really well. So whilst I think Cucurella would play, I'd actually play Lewis Hall. So I'm going to stick Lewis Hall in here. I just think the youngsters have been kind of fearless. They've got a great attitude. They want to play for the club. I'm not suggesting that, Cucurella doesn't want to play for the club, but I would go with that. So we're looking at a back four of Kepa with Silva and Badiashile as centre-backs, with Chalobah right back, Lewis Hall left back, although it probably would be Cucurella, and I wouldn't be complaining too much, but I would just give the nod to Lewis Hall. KSA, man, I can understand why you'd want Cucurella there. In terms of the midfield, for me, no-brainer. Denis Zakaria 100% plays in that holding position for me. I'd have him at the base of the midfield. I think other than Kepa and Silva, he's one of the first names on the team sheet at the moment. It's been quite some turnaround. I remember a while back saying that I didn't even think we'd ever see Zakaria in a Chelsea shirt. And now he's one of our most important players, one of the most improved. And if he carries on this form until the end of the season, the option to buy Chelsea have got on him, I think 35 million euros. That is an absolute steal and something that I think we should be all over if he keeps this high level of performance there. I know Potter will start J5. I mean, I don't think he will. He started him against City in the Cup and he was dreadful, had to be subbed off, awful performance. And in City against City at home in the league, he didn't start him either. So I would go Zakaria. So I don't think Jorginho potentially will start. I'd go Zakaria. I'd then go Mateo Kovacic. And I would also go with a youngster who has really impressed me in Carney Chukwuemeka. And I'm probably going to spell that wrong. Yeah, I think that's right. I'd go with Zakaria, Kovacic, and Chukwuemeka. Again, Mason Mount for me. Again, he probably definitely does play, but for me personally, I wouldn't pick him. His form's been nowhere near good enough, and he shouldn't just be picked because he's Mason Mount and because he's a Cobham graduate, etc. You've got to be picked on form, and Mount's not doing it for this Chelsea team at the moment. He hasn't been in form all season, arguably. Chukwuemeka, a great young player, doing really well. He's hungry, he's chomping at the bit, and he's really impressed in the performances that we've seen from him so far. So he fully deserves his opportunity to start in the Premier League in this game. And I think he can certainly make an impact with that physicality with those runs from midfield. So, yeah, for sure. Mate, you look at that midfield and you think, well, who else would go in there? I don't think Gallagher's not going to play. I thought it was poor against City. I don't think Jorginho's going to play. Ruben's still not fit. Kante obviously not fit. So you look at it, there's not many options in there. Mount bang out of form, doesn't really deserve to be in the team. So yeah, I'm going with a Zakaria, Kovacic, Chukwuemeka midfield there. Again, guys, let me know in the chat if you do anything differently in that midfield. Let's have a quick look at this here. A pragmatic back five: Correa, Badiashile, Silva, Chalobah, Humphreys, Zakaria and Cover pivot, and pit your attacking three. I mean, that's certainly an option that could happen. I mean, I don't know. I don't necessarily think we're going to deploy the back five. We haven't seen it for a while. Not really sure why we went with it in the second half against City, considering we're 3-0 down at half time. But yeah, the back five could be an option, in which case I'll probably play Chalobah in the middle with Badiashile and Silva and put Humphreys or maybe Aspie at right back. But let's move into this front three then. Now, whilst I agree, it'd be great to see Felix start. I honestly, yes, I know that he's been fit, he's been playing this season, but the fact, he's just arrived in the country, he's got one training session under his belt. I think to chuck him straight in would be a big call. So I personally think he's going to feature from the bench. Now, for me, we haven't got many options here. Ziyech was awful against City. Pulisic and Sterling are both injured. I don't like the look of Mason Mount at the moment. Conor Gallagher's been no good. You're looking at it and you're thinking, well, who the fuck is going to play up front in this team? For me, one player that 100% for me goes in, and that's Datro Fofana. Because Havertz has been stinking the gaff out for the longest time possible now, just not been delivering at all. And, rightly hooked at half-time against City. Fofana came on, first 45 minutes in English football, not been at Chelsea too long, few training sessions under his belt, and he offered a lot more. So, yeah, I played Datro Fofana down the middle. Now, this is the problem. There's no choices. I get your point, Atharv, that, we don't have many choices. That maybe that's why Felix should start, because Kai and Oba were awful. I do agree with that. I don't know if Potter's going to persist with Hakim Ziyech. Started the last two games. Will he go with him? We really are at a complete lack of options here. It is a problem. Do you know what? I know I've completely slated that Hutchinson again is an option. I don't know if he's ready to start though. Is Hutchinson ready to start? I mean, he got minutes against City in the Cup. He made his PL debut against them at the Bridge. Is it too big to chuck him in a game against Fulham from the off? Would he look to do that? I don't really know, but we are struggling for options here because we either go Hutchinson on the right hand side and then we play him on the left and Ziyech on the right or whatever it is. I really don't know here. Yeah, I do agree. I'm not sure if Hutchinson's ready to start a game, but then who goes in this position? That's the problem. It really is the problem. Southampton have knocked Manchester City out of the League Cup, and Forest have beaten Wolves on penalties, by the way, guys. So the League Cup semi-finals are United, Newcastle, Saints, and Forest rounding out the final four there. Back to the front line then. Obviously, I play Fofana down the middle. But then the problem you've got here is that who do you play at centre forward? Because if you shifted Fofana out to the left-hand side, for example, and you played Ziyech on the right, who plays in the middle? Because Aubameyang's been shit, and so's Havertz. But who's more shit? Who's least shit out of those two? That's a really tough question. Do you know what? Fuck. I know I've slated him, but I probably am gonna, just for a complete lack of options, I'm probably gonna have to go Ziyech here because I don't think Mount deserves to start. Or the other option you've got here is if we do this and go 4-2-3-1 with maybe Chukwuemeka kind of in that sort of... Chukwuemeka did play sort of in this sort of position here against City with Datro Fofana on this side. And then you're thinking, well, who would go up top though? Oh, that's the problem. I don't really know what to do here. This is a real problem. It probably is going to end up being, it's going to have to be Hakim Ziyech. I think I'll leave the three-man midfield. It's going to be Ziyech on that right-hand side. I played Datro Fofana, and then the centre-forward position is a problem. I would love to chuck Felix in, but I just can't see him started. Yeah, it is. Over versus Kai is trash versus garbage. Yeah, it literally is the worst of the worst. Felix can come instead of Ziyech behind the striker. Yeah, he could, but I just don't think he's going to start. Do you know what? Let's just chuck him in. Let's chuck the big man in. Joao Felix. I know he'll probably be on the bench, but let's just chuck him in for argument's sake. And I think we go with this here. Felix as the centre forward, Datro Fofana on the left with Ziyech on the right. I mean, do people think anything different in that? Could use Hall in midfield and Cucurella on the left. I mean, that is also a possibility. Play Lewis Hall in midfield instead of who, though, because Chukwuemeka's been really impressive. Cover's probably going to play, and Zakaria's been in great form as well. So, I mean, we look at this team here, like guys, and we've got Kepa in goal, Silva and Badiashile, Hall and Chalobah. Zakaria, Kovacic, Chukwuemeka in midfield. Felix not in the right position. I mean, what would you do then, KSA? Would you go Felix in this 10? Maybe have Datro Fofana in the centre, Ziyech on the right here, and have Chukwuemeka kind of operating in that left channel, as it were, like he did against City in the league. Is that what you'd go for there? No, Potter didn't really use a striker at Brighton, did he? He kind of used Trossard. He did use Mopé for an extent. He did use Welbeck sometimes. Let's go Felix scoring and assisting. I mean, that would be nice, guys. That would be nice. I'm going to roll with this system here. I know there can be a little bit of a room for kind of changing things up, and you could almost have it like this to an extent with Datro Fofana up top, and then you could come narrow and have Felix and Ziyech kind of in a narrow 4-3-3 as a two kind of floating players behind the striker. That's probably what I would go with here. That is a team I'd go with, other than Danny Welbeck. Yeah, Potter did use Welbeck, but I mean, Mopé was kind of there when he played as well, but there was no kind of prolific centre forward, as it were, unless someone's completely escaping my mind. But yeah, guys, that is my team for the game against Fulham tomorrow. I think that's pretty good. I mean, if Felix doesn't play, I think it's inevitably going to be Mount. But yeah, that's what I go with tomorrow. I think that's the players that deserve to play. Yeah, subs bench is going to be lacking some depth, 100%. Hall, Chuck, Hutchinson all need to show eye for goal. We've got no non-scoring attackers. Yeah, we do, mate. We've got, it's really poor, this. So these guys are going to have to step up. Felix, if he plays from the off, Datro Fofana, Ziyech, if he can do something. But yeah, no, that's the team that I would go with for tomorrow evening, guys. And that seems like a pretty good place to round out the stream. All that's left now is to predict the score. The Blues, with one win in their last 9 games against the Fulham side, in good form. But I always say it, but I'm gonna be positive. I think I've got to be optimistic, actually, and rather than positive. I think it's going to be a draw. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw tomorrow night. It doesn't really help us at all, to be honest, but that's how I see it at the moment. I just don't see where wins come from. But I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, Chelsea to pick up a point, which doesn't really do us much good at all, and still would leave us with 1 win in 10 games. Shona going 2-0 Chelsea, Athard 2-0 Chelsea as well. Guys, I'd love that to be the case. But yeah, I'm going for a 1-1 draw. I'll be at Craven Cottage tomorrow night, guys, so no match reaction after the game, but make sure you stay tuned for the match day vlog, which will drop after the game's finished. So sometime in about within half an hour of full-time match day vlog from Craven Cottage, and hopefully Joao Felix's debut will be out. So stay tuned for that, and I'll be back with a match reaction probably on Friday at some point, rounding up some transfer news with it as well. So guys, thanks as always for keeping me company tonight. Really appreciate it. Thanks for getting involved in the chat with your thoughts and comments. And yeah, guys, I'll catch you tomorrow with the match day vlog, as I said. But yeah, enjoy the rest of your evening. Take care, and up the Chelsea.